Call the meeting to order. Our October board meeting. It feels like forever since we've met in this room. I'm excited about that, meeting in person. So I think, do we need to call out who's in attendance because there's people on the phone? Yes?
Yes.
So we got Roger Jarrett, Sammy Sampa, Eva Borowski, Greg, and which is not here, and Sheila from the board. And then Lisa's on the table as well, and that's the rest of the room. And on the phone we have Darren Rose and Maura Webster now.
Yes.
Okay, Cardinal.
So I think that's it for regular attendance. We'd like to appoint a timekeeper. I'm looking at anybody in the eyes. All right, Sami said that she could do it. I think we've been pretty good at staying on time. Let's see if being in person changes now. Do we have, I don't think we have Bella to ask her if we get any public comment. Is there anybody from the room like to, any public comment?
Maybe.
No public comment? All right, so move on. So we have in the consent agenda a couple of things from finance. I reviewed that. I don't think that requires any kind of discussion, but does anybody want to move anything from the consent agenda out? No? All right, so we'll move on from that. And I'm actually curious, Chris O'Keefe said he was going to come here for talking about the soaring eagles. So maybe you can take the vote without it.
Yeah.
If he comes, we can look at it. All right, so
I can represent that native.
all right,
Chris
so
does not make it.
let's get the votes out of the way. So first is approval of the minutes from the August 31st meeting. That's included in the packet. So I'll take a motion to read minutes. So motion by Samini.
Second.
Second.
By
By Evan.
No.
Greg.
Evan.
Yeah.
Somebody did.
Greg.
Bye, Greg.
By Greg.
Yes.
Those in favor, do we need a roll call? Yes?
Yes. Okay, do you want me to do that?
Yes, if it helps you.
Okay, Darren Rose.
Darren Rose?
Yes.
Evan.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Maura Webster.
Yes. Yes.
Raul.
Yes.
Roger.
Yes.
Sheila.
Yes.
Samini.
Yes.
And that's it.
And I did promise Mr. Finkel that I was going to remind everybody to speak into the microphone. So the motion passes. We got the minutes approved. The next one's approved, the special board meeting minutes from September 15th. That's when we took the vote for moving forward with the building project. My only comment on that, I guess it doesn't really matter because we're all here. It noted that their next meeting was going to be at 6:30, which caused maybe a little confusion for today, but
Sorry about that.
that's okay. But the minutes are materially correct, so that's what matters. So I'll take a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion to approve.
So Sheila,
I will second.
second by Evan.
Okay. I'll take the votes here. Darren Rose.
Darren?
Yes.
Evan.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Maura Webster.
Maura?
Yes. Yes.
Raul.
Yes.
Roger.
Yes.
Sheila.
Yes.
Salmini.
Yes.
And that's it.
And the motion passes. So the next one, I was going to let Chris talk a little bit more about that, but I think we can get the vote going, and then, if he comes, then we can talk more about that. For those of you that are not familiar, the STEM Soaring Eagles Foundation is a separate organization that the school established to develop 501c3 for fundraising purposes. So it's technically a separate organization, although it's related to the school. But it allows us to do fundraising with about 501c3, which has benefits for people that can donate to it. So it has its own governance board, and the school does get to approve this. The trustee board gets to approve when they change their officers. So they reach out by saying that they were recommending there he is. So right on time, Chris. So I'm explaining what the vote that's going to be on the table, but maybe I'll turn it over to you before we actually vote to explain a little bit about Soaring Eagles Foundation.
Hey, Chris. Good to see you.
So there's a recommendation from that board to elect a new chair for the board of directors for STEM Soaring Eagles Foundation. So maybe, Chris, I'll turn it over to you since your timing is impeccable for explaining what Soaring Eagles Foundation is.
So, hi everybody, my name is Chris O'Keefe. I'm a former trustee and I'm the president and chairman of the foundation. So a word about what the foundation is. It's an odd little organization. The foundation exists for a couple of purposes. One is to make giving convenient for donors, either corporate or individual, who prefer or need to give to a 501c3 nonprofit and not to a government entity. So that's kind of one thing that's all about. The other thing that we do is that we are, the foundation was founded, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe 10?
About 10.
So about 10 years ago with a substantial gift from the then group, which was about $50,000, which was restricted for student use only. There was a bit of controversy around donor intent. The donors at the time, during the bad old days, were basically distrustful of the institution. And so they set this up as a separate thing to make sure that AMSA wasn't using the money for nefarious purposes. So what we've done is and because we wanted to benefit students, is that basically the corpus of that is around 50 grand. So it's not a lot of money, and it's going to go away over time. But what it's used for is student welfare grants made at the discretion of the administration. And they just, we worked out a protocol to keep the grant making within the confines of the restrictions of the gift. And the administration makes those grants for things like test fees, outing costs, these kinds of things in some students. And they report to us on a quarterly or semi-annual basis what they've done. And we just ensure that the money is used in the spirit of which we should continue. The other thing is that now with new executive director, I haven't met him.
I know. Hello. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. We need to make a plan. But
Yes.
the other thing that that we want to use the foundation for is as a way, as an on-ramp for donors and other leaders who want to be active at AMSA and to assist with the capital campaign in ways that we haven't really quite developed yet. But one of the real delights of having a 501c3 is that it is not a public entity. It is not subject to open meeting laws. You can go into an executive session whenever you feel like it, for whatever reason. So it's really, there's really no heavy lifting in this committee. Right now we meet roughly quarterly by Zoom. And we're actually underpopulated now. We're supposed to be 5 to 15 people. And Lucy will make us 5. So, this is going to get to the basics. And then the next task, and we'll meet in November, is to look and see how can this group contribute to the capital campaign, and how can we provide kind of a high-profile but low overhead avenue into supporting AMSA. So it's the kind of thing that significant campaign donors might do. And it also needs to dovetail. So the other organization that exists is called the Advisory Board, which again is kind of on-ramp and off-ramp for trustees. And so we need to figure out those two things over the next few years. The board members currently are all former AMSA trustees. So myself, Only Jen Ryan, Craig, Craig's last name?
Holbrook, Craig Holbrook.
And now we're going to invite Lucy. Marcy and Deanna are our staffers. And we also invited Jill, but Jill's busy here. And so our next order of business is really get Lucy on board, and then get with Lisa and start thinking about how we go forward. So and it's this board appoints me to that. So I'm asking you to appoint Lucy Ferrante to the board of the STEM organization.
As a director.
As a director.
And to speak. Yeah, and you missed my reminder to speak into the microphone.
Oh, well.
You don't have to repeat it. Now, and I guess one thing that's kind of top of my mind, and I don't want to steal Maura's thunder, and maybe she'll talk more about it later in the meeting, but we're thinking about the relevance of the different groups that we have right now for doing fundraising and advancement in general for the school. So, Marcy's in the room, so I'm sure you've met Marcy by now, but, that's, as you mentioned, there's different ways that people can get involved. So the Soaring Eagles Foundation is one way for those that might want to help, but not necessarily in the director of trustee capacity. That's one way of doing it. But then we also have a development committee within the board, and then we have the Imagine Campaign Committee. So we're trying to make sure that all those things make sense. How do we, where do we draw the lines between all those different groups? So like you said, we're kind of figuring that out, but there's kind of conversations out there on the table for,
And there's lots to be done, and it's not really hard to do.
So, right? Any questions for Chris?
It's kind of fun to be back in this.
Yeah, it's good to see you back here. And, this is the first time we're meeting in person in a while, so I think it's good timing. We have more time to catch up. All right. If there are no questions for Chris, the vote that's on the table is to elect Lucy Ferrantes as director of the STEM Soaring Eagles Foundation for recommendation of the current board of the STEM Soaring Eagles Foundation.
I will second.
So you're moving?
No, I will move.
What is the wording? As
Yes,
director or as chair?
Director.
As a director.
Lucy Ferrantes.
It's in the agenda.
Thank you.
So moved by Roger.
I will second.
Second by Grant. And I'll let you do the roll calls.
Darren Rose,
Darren?
Yes.
Evan,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Maura,
Maura?
Raul,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Sheila,
Yes.
Salmi.
Yes.
That's all, the motion passes. So congratulations,
Maura.
Lucy. Maybe I should have said this before the vote. Lucy was our treasurer before when she was on the board, and she had served on the board for a number of years, so she's a known friend of AMSA. So I'm happy.
Very active and very successful in landlord relations.
Yes.
And that's what I think we do.
So glad we keep her close, and I'm sure she'll do a great job, and like you said, we want numbers in that. So for those listening, if you're looking for ways to help AMSA, that's one thing worth exploring. Reach out to Chris and the Soaring Eagles Foundation. Thank you, Chris. And welcome to stick around if you like that seat.
That's okay. Nice to see you all, but
Thank you for
Good to
stopping by,
see you.
Chris. Appreciate it. All right, Liana, do you want to talk about our audit, financial audit? Are you presenting anything?
Yes.
Okay. So you want to?
yeah, I signed that thing for you.
Thank you.
So this is for approval of the financial audit, so Liana's
Do you want
going
the
to.
four? I've got it.
Yeah.
Alexa, can you hear?
Microphone.
Can you hear me?
It's more important to get Mr. Finkler.
Try again.
Testing? No? No.
A little bit
Laughing
loud.
from here.
A little bit closer.
How about now?
Do we got it?
Weren't they
Works when you tap
on?
it.
I'm not really a microphone expert, but
You want to take
you
a...
just have to get right up to
Do you want
it.
to take a seat?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
This is everybody's time. Oh.
Makes you feel like a singer when you're here.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So AMSA and I survived another audit. We are reporting out on the audited financial statements for June 30th, 2023. And I'm just going to go over some highlights for you guys. So this is the independent auditor's report. Can everybody kind of see that?
Yep.
If
All
you
right.
could zoom in just a little bit,
So
like
a
maybe
little-
75%, if you click the plus
Okay.
at the top.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. How about now? Okay. So, so this is the independent auditor's report, and what's really important to note is the second paragraph here In our opinion, the company financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of AMSA as of June 2023, and there were no material findings or misstatements. So it's a clean audit opinion for AMSA, which is
Just
really
like a
good.
quick question, it says 2023 and 2022. Is there a reason why they mentioned both years?
Yeah, so once we get into the financials, actually we can go there now. Last year they didn't do comparative because we adopted the new lease accounting standards, which would have made the footnotes all kind of quirky. So this year they went back to doing comparative financials,
Got it.
which means last year and this year compared. So in the first few columns, you'll see this year, and this is the balance sheet. So 2023, you're going to see the STEM Foundation, which Chris just alluded to or talked about, and then you'll see the school in this column, and then the total between the two. So it's consolidated financial statements with our STEM Foundation. So as you'll see, we ended the year, let's make this a little bit bigger, maybe. We ended the school year with $8,240,000 in cash, and we have actually more than that because in this accounts receivable line, you'll see $1,368,000. 1.2 million of that is tuition that we were due to receive in June, but it didn't come in until July. So we have 8.2 plus 1.2. We have $9.4 million in cash at the end of the school year, which is really solid. So total assets, we ended up with $30,635,000. And then down here, you'll see our total liabilities. Current liabilities, $2,433,000. Long-term, which includes the mortgage on the property, $11,868,000. For total liabilities and equity of the same amount as the assets, $30,635,000. Any questions on the balance sheet before I move on? Okay. So then you're going to see, and if you look over here, back to the balance sheet real quick, you'll just see 2022 how we ended up there for comparative purposes. All right, so down to what I refer to in the corporate world is the income statement, but because we're GASB accounting, it's the statement of revenues, expenses, and net changes. This shows basically your revenue, your expenses, and your surplus for the year. So just to highlight, our per pupil tuition ended out at $15,758,000 for the year. And then scrolling down, you'll see changes in unrestricted net position from operations of $674,000. What that means is that is the surplus the school had just from running the school. So down here, you'll see an additional surplus which is generated from non-operating expenses, non-operating activities such as our rental property, interest on our banking accounts and leases, some grants and other kind of miscellaneous things. So that's $546,000. Together you can get your total surplus of $1,220,000, which is again very solid surplus for the year. Any questions on that before I move on? Okay.
I actually have one question. So the surplus that we're seeing here, is this, I don't really have the context of AMSA's budget going back more than just this year because it's the first year I'm on the board. Is that a normal surplus? Is that an unexpected surplus in with regard to the surplus that we usually run or don't run?
That it's not normal, it's higher than normal. There were a few adjusting entries that I cleared out this year, also contributing to that surplus. I don't know if you recall back at the end of June, we were projecting 970, so this is more than what we were actually projecting.
And what, I forget the phrase that you used. You said it was more because you cleared some
Adjusting entries.
Could you tell me what that means?
Yes, so, back when we had, before we had finalized our closing with the landlord, there was $100,000 in CAM that I had accrued because I thought he was gonna come back and ask for that, but after we closed out and a long period of time, he didn't, I said, okay, well, it's time to like clear that out, so that resulted in the other way to a positive for the income statement.
And maybe this clarifies that a surplus doesn't necessarily mean that we have that much extra cash. It's an accrual thing, right? So that gives us back a benefit, in the profitability wise, but it's not extra cash. Something that we were saving to spend that we didn't spend. But I think from the top of my head, and you can correct me, Leanne, if I'm wrong, because I remember talking about that kind of ongoing surplus, how much, it's hard for us to count on a surplus every year because revenue is so variable, with the tuition, and it changes every year, and we don't know about it until after we're already in the school year. But what we have used kind of top of head, thinking about the commitments that we're making and then planning for the future, is that if we count for about $500,000 a year, that's kind of averages out over years. So that's kind of top of mind figure that I have, that's not really set in stone or anything that we should bring to the bank, but kind of for thinking about budgeting purposes. Do you agree?
Yeah, so we usually try to, add to that, we usually try to budget between 300,000 to 500,000 surplus for the year. And that gives us a cushion if, if say the CAM charges happen in the other way, it gives us a cushion, to work on those things.
That makes sense. Thank you, guys.
Any other questions? Okay. And then this is just a comparative of last year. I'm not going to really go into that because we talked about it last year. And I think the rest, I guess I just want to highlight one of the footnotes because it makes me sleep at night. And that is a footnote that they showed last year. Bear with me while I scroll down to it. Lots of footnotes. This one here, concentration of credit risk. I don't know if you recall last year, but last year we were uninsured. Our cash balance at our bank was uninsured by the tune of $8,439,000. We've made drastic efforts to change that this year. All of our cash in our banks is fully insured this year. So I just wanted to add that.
It's a little number on a piece of paper, but
yeah.
Just peace of mind.
And I don't think that there's anything else on that. Before I move on, any questions? All right. So this was another document that the auditors gave to us, and you'll see it's color-coded and everything is in green here. These are some ratios that they calculate based on, our assets, our liabilities, our revenue, our debt, things like that. And so if you notice, all of these things are color-coded in green. He always says, think of it as a stoplight. You could have red or yellow or green. Red meaning not so good, yellow moderate, and green means go. So as you can see, AMSA is in the go for all of our ratios for the year. And I think there might, no, okay. So
Are
that's-
any of these or some of these relevant for the covenants of the loan?
Yes, so if you look at debt to equity, what do they call it?
So to asset.
Should be debt to equity. Okay, debt to asset, maybe that's how they phrase it. No, that's not it.
So equity is a subset of assets.
There is debt to equity somewhere. On this one here, they do debt to equity, which is the bank, one of the bank covenants. And you'll see we're at 0.93 here. And we're required to be at 1.15, so less is more in this case.
Right.
And that's all I was going to go over for the financial statements for this year.
don't know.
as interesting reading material. The slide here that you can't read, but this gives you comparison of AMSA, which is the first two columns, versus other schools that our auditors have audited, so you can see how we compare and contrast versus other similar sized schools. Some of these schools own their buildings, some don't, some are urban schools, some are rural schools, but at least you get a feel for looking at AMSA versus other schools.
And that's loaded on Board on Track if anyone wants to check that out. Okay.
And I'd like to first compliment Deanna in getting us through this audit year. The audit report, and also the Finance Committee reviewed this in detail with the auditors, and the Finance Committee voted to recommend that the board approve the audit results.
I would agree with that, and a clean audit is something, I serve on other nonprofit boards, and always you want to hear those words, clean audit. And it sounds easy to say, it sounds like just a few pages, and even though this is a 3-page document, it takes a lot of effort to get to those 3 pages. So thank you, Liana, for all the effort throughout the year, being judicious with their finances, but also through the audit process, which is basically put in a magnifying glass on everything that we did throughout the year, making sure that everything is the way it should be. So appreciate that. Thank you, Liana, and the team, and the administration, and the Finance Committee for all the effort in getting us to this point. Any other questions or comments about the audit? Otherwise, I think we need a vote to approve and accept the audit. It's presented, right?
Yes.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve for the board to approve the audit.
All right.
I'll
By
second.
Roger, seconded by Sheila.
Great. I will call.
Go for it.
Darren Rose,
Yes.
Evan,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Maura,
Yes.
Raul,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Sheila,
Yes.
and Samin.
Yes.
And the motion passes unanimously. Once again, thank you, Liana, for the presentation and for giving us a clean audit. All right, that's it for the votes. Next up on the agenda is our capital campaign update. So Marcy, you want to come up and talk to us? And that's one of the things that, while she makes her way here, we were talking earlier about the different fundraising avenues we have in development. And one of the things that we thought it would be a good idea is rather than have the board members be the sole presenters of what's going on from a development perspective, is to give Marcy the floor, because nobody knows better than what we're doing for not only the capital campaign, but also everything from the development side. So, the agenda item says capital campaign update, but feel free to make it whatever will help us raise more money.
Great, thank you. I've not met everybody here, so I'm Marcy Eckel, I'm the Director of Development. Actually, Tuesday is my 1-year anniversary at AMSA. I started on Halloween Day last year. I got COVID the next day, and I was out for 5 days. And then I went to Jamaica for 8 days, so I really didn't start until December. But we've actually made substantial progress since then. My numbers, and Liana and I have not necessarily fully synced yet, but my tentative numbers right now we're just over $350,000. We were at about 210, 212 when I started last year, so we've had some good momentum over, I would say, the last 6 months especially. I think everybody here knows we had a $25,000 grant come in from Middlesex Savings Bank, which is really big for us. Certainly bragging rights for us and an opportunity for us to leverage significant giving like that with other organizations, and we're working on that right now. We had an incredible fun run on Monday that raised over $22,000. It actually does not close until tomorrow, so we don't have the final numbers yet, but as of yesterday, it was at $22,342, which is amazing. I was actually just 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We didn't really think Fun Run would go over very well with the high school kids, but Lisa has an idea for what we might actually do with the high school kids.
So I think you will all remember last year we had this sort of big Imagine campaign. We divided the group up. We have a major gifts team and we have an events team. And it was the events team that put on this fun run, and it blew me away. We set a goal of 15, and I think we were all a little nervous about 15, and so to achieve that much is really significant. So if we sort of think about the campaign, and the way Lisa and I have been talking about it, and I think I came here in August or maybe September and sort of talked about the idea of rolling out some of our campaign fundraising more as annual fundraising, just sort of to set expectations, further cement the culture of philanthropy at the school. But if we think about having a fun run and a golf tournament as sort of some anchors from an events perspective that bring in over $30,000 a year, that's really significant revenue for us. And volunteer run for the most part, so while extraordinarily heavy lifting for them, not necessarily something that we internally have to spend large amounts of our salary on, which is really, really wonderful. Couple other just dates to throw out there. So the groundbreaking is on November 14th. We're really looking forward to that. We're hoping the STEM Soaring Eagles will meet on November 6th. And when Chris said no heavy lifting for that group, I actually am hoping that there will start to be major heavy lifting for that group. It's my goal that that group will become ambassadors, that will do more board development, that will do more strategic planning, will do more long-term outlook about the philanthropic sites that we have as a school. And board development is a major piece of that. I think that we definitely need some new people. We need, a lot more participation to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. We have an Imagine Major Gifts meeting coming up in November on the 20th. Mark Vital has been working with Cindy, right? To plan a legislative breakfast on December 4th. I think it's in honor of Arthur Vigin, but that's something that we will have here at the school, which is really significant for us to do that. Welcoming any of the officials into the school is wonderful. And then
Is there a date yet?
Sorry, it's December 4th. I think it's at 7:30. Does that sound right? We'll send out a notice.
Yes, they haven't set the time, they've
Okay.
just finished the invitation.
Okay, that's great. And when I say Cindy, it's Cindy Zomar that's been working with Mark on that, so that's really wonderful. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit about sort of how we're wrapping our arms around the concept of annual outreach this year. We have been working with Mike Finkel to put together, we're going to start having some banners outside on the construction fencing, certainly one at the entrance where you come in between Four Kicks and AMSA. We're talking about putting sandwich boards out at all the drop-off points that will have the QR code, scannable QR code right there for how to give. We're going to do targeted outreach to parents in grades 9 through 12 this fall. We will not do 6 through 8 this fall because we just tapped that group for the fun run. Giving Tuesdays, November 28th, we'll do something for that. We'll do end of calendar year outreach for some people that, really like to get a gift in before the end of the tax year. That's important to send something out around December 27th or 28th. Last year we did a tribute gift message on Valentine's Day, and it had some modest success, so certainly worth our effort to put an email together like that. We will make a targeted outreach to grades 6 through 8, also January or February-ish. We'll do a whole last pitch to the whole community in April. We'll do just graduating seniors in May, and we'll ask them to make a
Unknown participant is now exiting.
We'll ask the seniors to make a $20.24 gift. The idea there is that if you get an outgoing senior to commit their senior year, that they will be continuous givers throughout their duration of their, when they're an alum. So, and then we'll reach out to graduating senior parents in July. We like to give a couple of weeks after graduation before we sort of pounce on that group. And so that's what we're thinking right now. We will sprinkle in a couple more events, certainly some open house meetings like we had last year, definitely have some house parties. I know, Raul, you very generously offered up your house, and I have not taken advantage of that yet, just because we've sort of been tweaking what we're doing a little bit, but absolutely something that we want to do.
moving forward. The opportunity to engage with our community is our best chance at raising money. And, we really are starting to take more advantage of leveraging opportunities. For instance, we actually just got a Cummings grant, in a much smaller Cummings grant. We got $2,000 in yesterday. And it was something that somebody that worked for Cummings recommended for us, which is wonderful. So we want to do a feature in a newsletter about that so that other parents can think, oh, my company does that, maybe I should recommend AMSA, or, oh, my company has a matching gift. We're not really doing that yet because I think for so many years, people were thinking about us just as a public school, and that's not really how you give to a public school, right? You volunteer when you give to a public school. Well, we need people to give money now too. And so that's what we're really trying to get everybody on the same page about how to do that. Oh, and I should say, we are still working on grants too. When Chris said, one of the things that's powerful about the STEM Soaring Eagles is that they are the 501c3. Having that tax bracket identification is the only way we're eligible for certain grants. And so we apply for most of the stuff we apply for through the STEM Soaring Eagles. And that's actually, we've had some success with that, and we're going to keep working at it. That's it. I'm
There's a
sorry.
lot going on.
We had a two-mayor.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, we did. Do you want to say that?
No, go ahead.
We had Samantha Perlman in yesterday, and Christian, does he say Dumas?
Dumas.
Dumas. Okay. I'm French Canadian, so D-U-M-A-I-S as Dumas threw me off a little bit. But and he came in. It was last week, right? And they were both wonderful, and we had I think they both stayed for an hour, and we toured the whole campus, and we talked about the campaign, and we talked about the students, and we talked about statistics, and it was really, really nice to have some FaceTime with both of them, and they were very, very interested, and they actually both came knowing quite a bit about AMSA too, which was really gratifying.
That's good to hear. Speaking for myself, that's a big factor. Support to AMSA is a big factor of why support.
Yes, no, right, I understand that. I don't live in Marlborough, so I don't get to vote, but they were both really wonderful.
It's a great update. I have one question. I know there's some alumni engagement going on. I just wanted to hear a little bit more about that because I know that my kids haven't heard anything, so I'm wondering how we're doing an outreach there.
I can give an update.
Yeah.
Only because I've been sitting. So I've been sitting in on the alumni meetings with Mr. Vital, and the email blasts go out, but they've had very small turnouts, like 1-2 people. And one is Stacia Wing, who is now a teacher here at AMSA, and then there was one other young lady there the night that I was
When
there.
we say email blast, what are what email addresses do we have?
I can look deeper into that. He has a list, he tells us, but I'm not so sure it is as extensive as it could be. So I think that we use Naviance, we do the exit survey, but I'm not sure the level that AMSA has required the seniors to complete the Naviance exit survey. So the goal is this year to make that part of, before you get your cords and your cap and your gown, you got to do the survey, and we need to know where you're going. So that's the plan for this year. But if anyone is out there, any alum out there interested in becoming a part of the association, email me, email Mr. Vital, and we'll get you connected with the group that's going to be working together. Their first event is going to be the Back to the Future event that they typically do.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think I have a couple of questions. One is,
Maybe they'll check the mic.
am I not being heard?
We get close.
You have to get closer.
For the two gentlemen here, you guys have class presidents, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just wondering if we can get at least a compilation of class presidents and then they can help us get, because there's got to be, if they serve on student government, I'm expecting that they'll have continued engagement with the school. And I'm wondering if we can do some sort of outreach to class presidents and have them compile a list of email addresses because one of the things I think it's hard to get them to come to an event, but are they ready to give, and are they able to look back and say that they had a great time here, we have a testament, and be able to still at least contribute? We're asking outgoing seniors to give for at least how much their year is, so 20, 25, whatever you were talking about. I just think those are great creative ideas that we can use with our alumni as well.
I totally agree, and can you guys hear me? One of the things that we have talked to Mark about, and I think it's just, he does so many things and sort of just fitting this in, is certainly reaching out to our internal community of alumni and parents of alumni and just saying to some of those people, can you start some of this networking for us to help us build some of these lists? I think using that and the class president's a great idea. I'm not sure how many people are on Facebook. I know it's very cringy for a certain age demographic, but you can certainly create class groups on Facebook pretty easily where people can opt in, and then you can have consistent messaging throughout all of those groups. Because again, we do have an anniversary coming up, and it's going to be really important for us to be able to harness all of those people together to come and help us celebrate. Really significant things have happened at the school since 2005.
Yeah, and I will just say, utilizing that pool of individuals that have graduated and gone through the academic rigor that we all know and mostly love. But, just the level of success that all of these students have achieved in one way, shape, or form. I know for a fact that, yes, plenty of times I've genuinely been curious what's going on with all of my former peers. Not to mention just hosting networking events and having that be some level of occasion for them to get together, and then you can segue into that, giving back for the school and talk about those initiatives, because, for every individual that's going to say, wow, that was, quite a great experience educationally, they're going to possibly want to continue that. And if you look at the numbers of all these students in very good positions and, caring a lot about their education, that can help out a lot.
Absolutely, and I mean, it's also a great networking opportunity too for somebody that's recently graduating to be able to talk to somebody 10 years older that's working at a company that they have their sights on. That's a network that we can build to help people. A little mini LinkedIn, if you will, that's AMSA connections.
Yeah, like a lot of the individuals, like I've chatted with, I used to help in computer science classes and teach, for instance, like basics. And we would talk about cybersecurity concepts, and it's a relatively new field. So leveraging individuals in the field now to talk to students, recently graduated, what's the right path? Because I've heard horror stories of some students in college, with their guidance counselors, well, what do? I don't really know. Not everybody has the answers. So take it from people that are a couple of years older and work from there. I think it would be a lot better received.
Absolutely, I agree.
Well, Mr. Vital is looking for help, and I see 2 eligible individuals across the table from me. And he definitely could use some support there, contacting and,
I think he
moving
does
people in.
monthly meetings, right?
He does monthly meetings, yes, he's had 2 already.
One last note is I do think it might be a tough sell with former student government, just because it's been far enough removed, where not a lot of these individuals are in the same circles and so on and so forth. So having the capacity to do that outreach on their own, not everybody may have that that connection for it. I can say that at least I remember the Facebook group for our class of 2016. Yeah, everybody is in that group if they still have accounts. So there are areas that you can utilize. It's just who wants to take that leap.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as far as any events go, I think you'll certainly find that, or I would expect to find that there's kind of a critical mass where if you get sort of enough people who ran in enough different circles going to these events, they become interesting all of a sudden, right? I think sometimes when it's so far removed, like Evan said, you can get this effect of like, oh, I would go, but I don't know who's going to be there, and so therefore I'm not sure if I want to go, and that's sort of a self-reinforcing thing. So I imagine it might be the case that kind of they're small until they're not, if that makes sense.
And I think they're happening during school hours right now too, for the most part. And
Monday nights.
Oh, no, the meetings are Monday nights, but like the Back to the Future is during
the
school, right? So my guess is from a socialization standpoint, it would be nice to have some, evenings out, like a Thursday night type of.
Yeah, are those events normally here?
They are. Well, it's at 4Ks, but yeah.
Right, but, so, and I don't know how much we have demographic information where everybody is, but is everybody kind of stuck around the Marlboro area? Would it be better to do like an event in Boston, or is everybody spread all over the country?
It's the first Tuesday in January, or the second Tuesday in January. So they tried to do it at least when it's break time for colleges, but that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah,
Previously, when they did the 5 years and reunion for people, they did it around Thanksgiving because majority of the people come back home from college. There were mixed responses at that time. I went to all of them whenever they were. I like to see my students. So, but I think they are thinking about shifting the dates. But if we are reaching out to people who graduated and who are currently working, I don't think that Thanksgiving is the only time that you have to target. Because what happens is people traveling from other places would want to spend time with family rather than attending these kind of events. It could be a split between that. So, just a thought out there.
I'm a big believer in meeting people where they're at, so offering a multitude of opportunities to participate would be in our best interest.
I think that, sorry, I'm just doing a time check.
I'm
sorry.
No, I just want to say, Marcy, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, it's building, right? And I think alumni programs take a long time to build and to really develop, because we have to figure out where, like you guys said, where our alumni are and what they're doing and what they're interested in, and it's gonna be hit or miss for some of the things, but I know that the committee is definitely, on it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for discussions. Any other questions for Marcy? You can run. But you can't hide. All right, if that's all, then we'll turn it over to Lisa for Executive Director or something.
I need help from Mr. Finkel first to get this projected up. I tried to text you.
Not really the right person. The cable's plugged in.
The cable's plugged in. Do you know how I get it up there, Mike?
Yeah.
I know how to do like.
Okay. Yeah, I was tasked with that.
A lot of talent in the room, thank goodness.
It's like Windows K.
Yeah.
Yeah, just Billy.
Darren, Mr. Mayor, is still on the phone, right?
I'm still here.
Check for pulse.
Checking for pulse.
Yeah.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I heard somebody drive, so it was Mark because she was walking in the room. So make sure you're still.
Sometimes I pull the plug out of chambers.
Yeah, no, it's changed.
Lisa has a presentation, she's trying to get it up on the screen.
So maybe I'll just start a little bit with what charter accountability is. I don't think you need the visual for that, but it's really interesting when we talk about accountability and scores in the charter world versus the traditional public schools, because accountability in a traditional public school is all about your MCAS scores. And your MCAS score is the start and finish of everything when it comes to accountability. But when you look at charter schools, we have a lot more on our shoulders than just those MCAS scores. Some of the things that we have on our shoulders is how we disseminate our best practices to our sending districts and other districts that are interested. We have site visits by DESE in order to renew our charter, which is coming up. The financial reporting and audits that Liana just presented is not the same in traditional public. We're accountable for that here in charter. Our annual reports and how we recruit and retain people. So if you want to see my slide, it is in board on track.
Just a technical question, is that something that Leanna has access to, the presentation? And I'm only asking because she used her laptop, so
Yeah.
if that works, and if you're not using it, Leanna, don't mean to steal your laptop from you.
I shared it with you,
Is some board
Sarah.
on track?
Yes.
AMSA for report.
There you go. Okay, and if you play the slideshow, it will,
So is that Leanna or the?
That's Leanna.
That's you.
No.
Oh, that's me now? Oh, all right, fantastic. So this is a very, very long presentation with a lot of information, but I'm not going to view.
Top right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I won't go through all of the slides. They're all on Board on Track. So the first slide that I really wanted to share with you is around our MCAS scores. And I think that this slide really tells the picture of AMSA and really the power of what our staff does for kids. If you look at the bar graphs, you can see that when we get students in 6th grade, we have a significant portion of students who score at the not meeting level. And then by 10th grade, it's virtually zero. The other thing that you can see is that our groupings, the largest groupings are in the meeting and the exceeding group come 10th grade. And this is across the board in all subject areas for AMSA. It's our math picture. And this is science. Science is a little bit difficult to take a look at because they switched tests right before that 8th grade year, and so it was a different test, so they don't have as much data for us at this time, but it's the same results. Big takeaways from the deep dive that I did in AMSA scores is that AMSA scores better than 98% of the schools in the state, and that we are exceeding our targets, especially by the time kids get to 10th grade. We do need to set some goals because our 2019 scores were a little higher than our post-COVID scores now. So we have some goal setting to do to get back to where we were, but that's very common in the districts across the state. We did a little dive into the understanding the SAT scores and our SAT scores. It's difficult to present SAT scores because kids take them all the time. They take them, you know, repeatedly. But we do have a little bit of good data on the SAT scores. So for the math cohort, basically 42% of our students are scoring over 600 and above, which are very strong scores. Whoops. Can I go back? Oh, I can't go back. Can I? This time. Yeah, no. Okay. Well, I apologize. 42% for evidence-based reading, and then 58% of students in math score 600 or above. So they're doing really well. SATs have become optional, or some schools are not looking at them. A lot of kids are questioning the value of SATs as the universities are. I don't know if that'll shift back. Typically what happens is the College Board says, oh, no one wants to take us anymore. They create a new test, the universities buy in, and we're back to SATs. So I don't know where we're going with it. I wouldn't give it up, but there's not as much value in SATs as there used to be. With regards to advanced placement, it's important to know that access to advanced placement is an accountability goal. Courses offered, we had 18 AP courses running in 22-23, and there were 234 students who took AP courses, which is fantastic. 82.1% of the students scored 3 or higher, and almost 30% of the kids scored a 5, which is just outstanding. This bar graph shows you the percent of total AP students with scores of 3 or higher, and you can see the COVID year being kind of an anomaly with the 92%. But again, our kids are doing really well. Very proud of them, very proud of what the teachers do and the time that they put in for AP. When I interviewed, I think you all might remember my AP for All comment, and then everybody kind of panicked. And I will tell you, being here, I think AMSA has an AP for all mindset without having an AP for all statement. They really, really do encourage kids to challenge themselves and to take these classes, and they should be proud of that. And again, like I said, the number of kids taking advanced courses and AP courses, it's part of your accountability, so it's a good thing. I think that.
Yeah, and just to clarify on that, I think there's a difference between the intention of making sure that everybody pushes themselves to achieve their very best, and then making sure that the prerequisites are met.
Absolutely.
So that those two statements are not in conflict.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone wants a deeper dive, the whole presentation is on Board on Track, and it goes into the MCAS pathways that I sent out to families earlier. So if anyone has questions, I'm happy to take questions.
So Lisa, what are your thoughts on future goals for AMSA?
With regards to...
In regards to education, catching up with COVID, AP, take that question any direction you wish to.
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't had a lot of time yet to meet with each individual department chair, particularly, I've talked a lot with Luba. I haven't talked as much with Marty in the area of English. I think that our goals need to be around attendance and improving attendance, and it's something that Mr. Naraki and his team's working on this year. Those are their goals that together we met, and off my goals, they set goals about focusing on attendance and focusing on getting kids here, because I think a lot of our data shows that when absentee rate is high, your scores are lower. And I think that we can get there just by making sure kids are here. I've officially observed one class, but I've observed several classes here at AMSA. The teaching is exceptional. They nail it. Implicitly or explicitly, by letting kids know what their objectives are, or implicitly demonstrating that. The pacing of the lesson keeps kids engaged. Teachers they're hitting all modalities. There's video, there's discussion, there's pairing and collaboration. So I really think that if we focus on absenteeism, because that's like an area of weakness. Our absenteeism rose a little bit through COVID. It got better this last year, and like I said, Mike and his team are tracking it now. So that's the goal that we set this year to look towards a score improvement. The other thing, Luba this year brought back a program that allows kids to go beyond what they're teaching in their math class, and she's running it 6 through 12. There's someone that, former AMSA student is here, and he grabs kids out of class and they work on these really, really high analytical problems just to get that level of thinking to the kids that need it. So those are a couple of the things. I think it'll be interesting to see the year-end data on our attendance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have a quick question on that initiative. If, based on the numbers at the end of the year of how well those students perform, is that something that the school would like to expand on other topics and subjects, like not just focused on that kind of?
With that pull-out program? Yeah, it kind of, I don't know. And the reason I say I don't know is because I do think that there are other things that are happening similar to that in other subject areas that I don't really know about. I just learned, for instance, that in the lower school, there's a reading writing program that happens, and it's in addition to your English. So in a sense, and not all the kids get it if they have other services or other things that they need. So, I think we have to look at our data. So for instance, we're giving the American Mathematics competition soon, and I'd like to see what kind of data that yields, to see where we're at, where we need to go from there. So yeah, I don't know. You're welcome. And the back.
Yes. Sometimes we feel. Any other questions for Lisa? How are we doing on time?
We're running a little bit late.
I just noticed in the agenda, capital that they had no time.
Yeah.
That means that I think you should have 10 minutes to. All right, thank you, Lisa, for that. I think this is one of those
Because he
things.
closed the laptop.
It's hard not, we don't want to get too focused just on test results, but we want to measure our academic success in any way we can, so it's good to always keep an eye on these things. I think we're good with the TV, so.
Yeah, I don't
Oh,
know.
right.
Now we got our.
No, I thought Roger was supposed to
Yeah,
Oh, you
connect.
presenting something?
Leanna's going to provide the computer for me.
Oh, okay.
When I get to my presentation.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Pat. All right, I know Greg has been waiting for this moment for months. This is the first time we have a full board meeting with the faculty rep report, so I'm not going to take any more time. I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. All right, thank you. So I'm going to start this off by apologizing because I made perhaps too big of a stink at the last meeting, being like, should we have an earlier meeting in the month so that I can give a faculty rep report? And then I think Salmini very graciously was like, why don't you just write it down? And I was like, yes, of course. And then as feedback came in, I kept delaying the writing, and now I'm in grading mode. And it came Tuesday this week, and I was like, I never wrote that. And then I was like, well, if I write it now, no one is going to have time to read it, and I'm going to be submitting something like a day before. So I apologize that I did not get something to you in writing. I think the 10 minutes should be sufficient, though, for what I'm going to say. So this year's been eventful, especially at the beginning. As many of you, I'm sure, know, there's a lot of things that are changing. We've moved our student information system to PowerSchool. We installed a new road, which is, coming from someone who has known this campus for a very long time, it's interesting to see a change. And anyway, we have started a new building, as we voted on around a month ago. Now, we installed a sauna on the 3rd floor. I recommend that you check it out. It's lovely. So there's been quite a lot going on. Just in terms of the feedback that I've been getting from faculty, I think some of it is certainly to be expected with any big changes, that there are a lot of people that don't necessarily like the changes or are just confused by the changes. I think with PowerSchool in particular was probably the biggest thing this year. There was a situation at the beginning of the year where PowerSchool does not track IEPs and 504s, which are very important to teachers. They're legally required for teachers to read. That was something that Plus Portals used to do. It has now been moved over to Elevation, which is also the system we use to track ELs, like students who are learning English. And that information was not available to teachers until like the night of the day before classes started. And I know that was certainly a sore spot, was I had teachers coming to me and saying like, it is the law that I need to have read these plans, and I do not have them as of the end of the school day, the day before I see my first classes. Like, this is bad. So I certainly think, like, keeping in mind, and I want to phrase this carefully, because I don't think this is something that wasn't thought of, per se, but I do think, like, keeping in mind the difference in magnitude between, like, the number of teachers who have to deal with these systems and the number of administrators that have to deal with these systems is important. Kind of doing the quick math out in my head, like, if one administrator spends 4 hours a day on PowerSchool, that is still an order of magnitude less time in total than 97 teachers spending 10 minutes on it a day, right? Or I was thinking about it particularly in terms of attendance, which came up, right? I spend probably 1 minute every class period on attendance, but I teach 5 periods a day, and there are sort of 96 other equivalent me's who do that. So the time really does add up. I think the one sort of the take-home message that, and I talked about this one-on-one with Lisa, that I would recommend is that I think administrators should perhaps be more conscious of keeping teachers in the loop, not just for things that are happening, but for the rationale behind those things that are happening and who's involved in making those decisions. And I don't think that lack of looping in comes from sort of any ill will, for sure. But I do think sometimes it's easy to lose track of, like, if I make this decision, the 100 or so teachers all are working off of partial information for why that decision was made. And if it impacts them, they're all going to come up with stories of why they think that decision was made, and then they will talk to each other and these stories will merge. And I think it's just easier for everyone if the truth is out there in the first place. This has happened to me many times over the past month or two, where a teacher talks to me about something that's happened. I'm like, yeah, I will talk to the relevant people. I talk to them, I'm like, why did this happen? And then those people don't know, and so I talk to more people, and there's just a lot of like out of the loop. I still have not gotten a super straight answer on why we switched to Power School in the first place. I've gotten fragments of an answer. I've gotten people who have said, I'm pretty sure it was this, but I have, there is no document, insofar as I know, that exists. There was no procedure for testing competitor products. And I think going forward, it might be worth it to take a step back and say, like, let's involve all of, not just the administration, let's involve everyone on at least knowing that those decisions are being made, if that makes sense. That would be my big note. I think that's a commonality I found in a lot of the things that have changed, whether it be the parking situation, I shouldn't say the parking situation in particular, the traffic situation, I suppose, the Power School situation, the situation with the HVAC unit in this building. Like, a lot of people know what is going on, but they do not know why it is going on, and I think that's the main source of frustration.
So one of the things that you might recall in my entry plan is the meetings with the staff, the open meetings. So my first, I'm calling them quality of life meetings. I sent out an invitation to the staff. It'll be in November, and then from there we'll have monthly drop-ins. So hopefully I get drop-ins, and hopefully they come with questions and concerns, and we can get ahead of kind of this information or lack of information situation, so that teachers can get more information. I think also that what's going to assist with that is I'm continuing to try to figure out which leadership groups need to meet and need to talk so that information flows a little bit more freely. We have the org chart, but that's not exactly how information flows, or it hasn't appeared to me that that's how information flows. So I'm trying to be very mindful and purposeful in the groupings that I create and meet with to kind of assess that. I think in the past, the org chart has just been looked at more like, well, you're here, so that's your responsibilities, but I think that it should really be looked at as a way for information to flow. So those are a couple of the things that hopefully will help us get ahead of the concerns that Greg, has brought.
Yeah, I think that's well said, and I would pretty strongly agree with that. And I think this is actually, I don't want to be sort of totally a downer in my faculty report. I do think this is, in a way, this thirst for information is good, right? I think people want to be involved in these decisions, and I think it shows that people really care. I don't think that there are many teachers here who are happy to just kind of sit back and sort of let the wind blow in the direction, whatever direction it may. I think people want to be involved in these decisions, because I think one of the things that has struck me is that there are a lot of people with ideas on the teaching staff. There are a lot of people that deal with systems every day and go, I want to make that better. And I think that sort of cultivating that with information and with other things would be a good thing, right? There's a lot of energy there that I think we can harness. Does that, yeah?
I just have a quick question, mostly for the rest of the folks. This was a decision made before I came to the board, but I will ask it then, what was the reasoning for the switch to Power School?
So my understanding was that this Rediker or whatever they were using could no longer complete the DESI reporting requirements that needed to be completed, and that they also, they were a small company and they weren't even able to give the direct support for small things as much. It wasn't felt on the teacher side, because that reporting side, they never see any of that. But the DESI reporting has gotten so incredibly complicated that there's only a few systems out there that have it mastered now. I do think I saw some communication that went out, but depending on how long you've been teaching here, you know, I don't know if the invitation was open to all teachers to sit and to demo things. But I do know that Power School will report to DESI, and unfortunately, for any inconveniences for the teachers, and I respect that, and I know what it feels like. I've been a guidance counselor, and I've been on the low level using these systems. If your system's talking to DESI and your reports are clean, it's almost like getting a clean audit. When Joanne submitted the October 1 SIMS report with no errors, I almost fell over. I've never seen that. Never seen a report with no errors. Never.
But I would say, I'll take this as an opportunity to highlight something which is always a discussion point here on the board. So that's feedback brought in by the faculty to the board, which we should always welcome, and it's important for it to be brought here. That specific decision is an operational decision that the board was not involved with, nor should we have been involved with, right? So it's the administration decision. They're totally empowered to make that decision. If there's something that the teachers say, hey, this decision was, and I'm not saying this is the case, but just to give it as an example, the decision wasn't done, you know, the process that we wanted and whatnot, that's feedback. We want to hear the feedback. It doesn't mean that the board had an opinion or should have an opinion about which system we use within the grades, right? So it's an important clarification, just because it's a perfect example of the kinds of things that sometimes come to the board. And the board's here to establish the governance, to establish policies and whatnot, but we were not involved with that decision, nor that I think we should.
Is that grounds for also discussion on like the policy and process for bringing in new software to the school? Is that out of scope in that aspect?
It would be, in my opinion, it would be out of scope other than the cost of the software.
Okay.
But I think what you're getting at is that there is experience on the board with regard to these kinds of pilots and rollouts and how we make the tools and all of that stuff. And while we may not discuss it here on the board, perhaps offline, there are conversations with the administration on how that happened. You know, I don't see why we.
Well,
at least
and maybe I'm not sure if this is what you're saying, but I'm going to take this to the extreme. You could argue, well, was it a competitive bid? Should we have done, you know, to comply with whatever law? But
I don't think that's what, at least, I think that's not the conversation.
But to make everyone feel safe, we are looking at what is called, we looked at a visitor management system recently and involved the people that needed to be involved with that. But we're looking at a campus-wide alert notification system right now for safety, because we have 4 locations right now, soon to be 5 locations that are very open, and safety and security can be improved. And so I have sent out repeated invitations for the faculty to be on the safety committee and then join us for all of those demos. So moving forward, anything that's really going to affect the staff like that, that's my procedure, is to involve them, to invite them in. There's no reason why 100 people can't sit here and watch a demo. So I think, I appreciate the feedback, and they went through a lot. There's a lot that Power School doesn't do that affects their lives every day. I hear them and I understand that. Moving forward, that's not how we'll demo things. Definitely not.
That was kind of the basis of what I was essentially getting at is,
Yeah.
you know, moving forward, can we ensure that there's going to be as less, minimal pain as possible when moving to a new system? Because there's always going to be growing pains with it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we want to make sure that able training, you know, the individuals bringing the software interaction, helping teachers get acclimated so that it's a smooth transition.
Yeah.
So that was my conversation.
which can be really difficult with a bunch of computer science people. Because you're smarter than the information that's out there. It's not a bad thing. It's just a
And then for
challenge.
and then just one call for somebody that's in the software industry, the perfect project does not exist. There's always go live date, everybody will have issues and, but
Yeah,
anyway.
but that why question, it
Why?
exists
Yeah.
everywhere. Like, why was this decision made?
Exactly,
Be more
yeah, but
transparent
one thing I would
policy.
say, and again, another example that I'll take, I've said this before here in this meeting room, that we have, one of the things about the AMSA way is that we involve people when we make decisions in general, and then we have, I would think there's a lot of consensus building stuff that gets done. There's a, task force that gets created, and even when we created the values and, all these kinds of things, it wasn't the board or it wasn't the administration, it was, there was, teams got brought together, so I think that should be the norm or the guiding principle is that we continue to do that. And it sounds like that there's a lot of people willing to be part of that, right? So, it would be different if you say, oh, let's invite everybody to come see the new system, and then nobody shows up. Like, okay, but I'm pretty sure that won't be the case. But, thank you. All right. Anything else from the teachers?
I think that about covers it, so unless anyone else has any questions. Check it out.
And I'm going to add, no need to apologize. I think, when you brought it up, that's exactly it. And just to reiterate this, if there's any, present feedback or anything that you hear from the faculty that the board needs to be aware of, you can always, it's not a violation of open meeting law to share information, so you can share with everybody on the board in advance of the board meeting. We should be responding to it because that would be, the deliberation would be a violation of open meeting law, but at least if we take too long between the sessions, there's always an opportunity to inform outside the board meeting. And you can reach out one-on-one, as I told you, so that's always on the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Any other questions, sir? Are we past time? I'm looking at my timekeeper. All right. So move on to the committee reports. Roger, finance.
So Leanna, could you, can I borrow your computer resources there?
She's going to tee you up.
Present the financials.
Okay, yes. So Leanna, as far as finances, Leanna first is going to present the financials, and then I'm going to talk some bigger picture goal setting.
Okay. So we, at the last finance committee, reviewed the quarterly financials ending September 30th, 2023. A few things that are highlighted that I'd like to discuss is tuition is more than what we projected by $202,000. As you know, that fluctuates quarterly, so we will stay tuned on that to see where we end up in December. Miscellaneous income is up by $22,000. That is because we invested $3 million in a T-bill account, which has earned $31,000 in interest in the last 3 months. And then student transportation, you'll see an increase of $44,000, but much of that will be refunded at the end of the year. So for the quarter, we have $4,754,000 in revenue versus our plan, $4,458,000, for a positive of $295,000. On the expense side, just a couple things I'd like to highlight. I'm going to zoom out on this just so we can see the chart on the side. Facilities is over what we budgeted by $141,000. And over here, I just broke it out a little bit. I don't know if you all know, you may or may not know, but Smock had their third flood this summer, August 9th, actually. And that cost $115,000 to clear the damage and finally fix the flood, cross our fingers. About a $6,000 is expected from the insurance company. We also did some exploratory work on the retaining wall by Smock to find out what exactly is going to be entailed in repairing that, which cost $16,000. as Greg mentioned, the sauna, and trying to remedy that, we spent $36,000 on AC rental units, which we have since returned because it didn't really work. And we purchased portable AC units for $15,000, which will stay on campus for future needs. So for $182,000 was spent this quarter for those reasons.
And Liana, just so everyone knows, the fix for smock is permanent. That was underground work that had to be done. There was crushed piping, so it's a permanent fix. I know it looks like a big hit, but it's a permanent fix.
Yeah, there was piping, paving, custom paving up to the playground so that all the water would drain down properly. Big drain, basins installed, lots and lots of work. But it's rained a bunch since then and we haven't had an issue, so. IT is up for the quarter by $33,000. I think that's just a timing difference, but we'll stay tuned on that. And then the good news against the facilities is I found an error in the budget to the tune of $86,000 going the other way, so that will help to offset some of those costs. So total expense for the quarter, $4,226,000 versus plan of $4,148,000. To the negative $78,000, but all in all, we have a surplus for the month of $527,949, of which that is driven by the $202,000 tuition increase that you see. Any questions?
Can I just, maybe for those that are new, talk a little bit about the tuition? The state comes up with estimates, so that's what those are. But then there's true-ups that happen, and sometimes they're negative. So even though that's $200,000 plus, we need to be conservative on our estimates because it could go the other way in 3 months. And it's all tied to the state budget. And there's a lot that happens at the State House. So whatever they decide trickles down and impacts our tuition.
Yeah, in fact, it's even more complex than that. It partially depends on what each of our sending school districts spends in their budget for their students. So, and we don't find out how much the school district spent until the end of the school year. So I think we come up, Liana working with Bella has come up with a process where we estimate we come up with our best estimate on what the tuition projection will be for the year based on what we know, and we'll see how it all comes out.
And to add even more complications to that, when the sending districts get large grants and they can spend their grants down, like the ESSER grants, rather than per pupil tuition, AMSA gets less per pupil tuition.
Sounds backwards.
It does sound backwards.
Any other questions for Liana?
Oh, just one, because one of the things that was part of the consent agenda was the change orders for the project, so.
I got that.
Oh, you got that. Sorry.
I just have to find Roger's email. Yes.
All right, so the work with Liana and the Finance Committee now has 2 monthly reports that we're going to be getting every month. They will also be attached to the agenda. In future months, they'll just be part of the consent agenda, but I wanted to highlight them this month. The first one is our cash report to show how much money we have and where it is.
Hold on. Just close that.
this shows actually our cash and cash equivalents of $9.3 million, and you can see the various locations where the money is at. We have our investments of the $3 million, you can see there, that's on the line 17. We also have most of our money is in Boston Private, some of it is in the construction account, some of it is in our cash management account, and we also have some of our monies that is at St. Mary's to give us financial flexibility. So, and in future months, this will be attached to the agenda, but we won't be reviewing it unless there's a significant change. So the next one, which we probably will review each month, is the change order request. So we have our building project. Get a plus a few times. We have our overall building project that's budgeted at $29 million, and we have about an $800,000 contingency. And these are the change orders that have occurred so far, the biggest of which was that we found some squishy soil that required more work to build a solid road over. So, and we'll be showing each month how much we've spent, how much is left in our reserve fund as we go. So that we have visibility to all the stakeholders as to how we are spending our money.
So it's a good thing we have a policy for those change orders.
And this is sort of showing the same thing, a different variation. This is showing our project on the construction budget of the various fees that have been paid out and how much we have left remaining in the various areas. And again, I'm planning to not present this one in future finance committee meetings unless a significant change or some major event has occurred. But I am thinking that we will continue to present the change order one each month. I'm open to feedback and suggestions on that.
Okay, including it in the consent agenda?
Well, there'll always be the three in the consent agenda. How much cash we have, what the total spend on the building, and the change order one, but I would be planning to verbally present the change order one each month. And finally, I'd like to talk about the Finance Committee goals. So Finance Committee's been very, very busy this year in an exciting way. So we reviewed and approved the final construction budget. We've been involved with the department chairs, contract negotiations from a finance perspective, and we've also just completed a successful audit. So at this point, we do not have goals to communicate back to the board, but we do have themes. So these are the themes that are going to become goals by the January meeting, and these themes are to build on our policies and procedures for financial governance, to monitor our investments, which you've already seen, I think, the results of. We particularly went to balance risk and reward. And when I say investments, it's not just money. It is teacher compensation, it is facilities, it is all places where we're investing AMSA's time and money. And finally, we want to develop and refine a communication plan for how to communicate this all so that all of our stakeholders can be aware of the financial aspects of the school. And finally, well, how are we going to do this? We're going to be, at the January meeting, we're going to finalize and present our finance goals. And that is it for finance.
And I gotta say, just because I saw some of that, a little more detail on was the consent agenda, you guys are discussing the goals. So that was really the challenge that I put out for all committees. So, even though you're kind of saying we'll finish that in January, that's perfectly fine. we want to make sure, I did promise Badminton when we had strategic planning that we would not have the same conversation that we had last year, this year. So making progress on those goals for, not only for this year, but in the long term, that is progress. So
Thank you.
appreciate that, and I thank the Finance Committee for
Leon,
taking that challenge.
I got one more slide that I sent you for the Education Committee. Oh, you're going to go through all that?
Excellent. Any questions for Roger, Leanne, and Finance? Thank you again for making goals a goal. I'm glad that you made progress on that. And that will be my last part of the night. So with that, I guess you can put your other hat on and talk about education.
So the Education Committee met earlier this month, a week and a half ago, and we discussed the goals, and we actually have one goal that we have already committed to, and that we are going to take ownership of the yearly survey rather than it being a board task force, that we felt that it would be best served to be permanently in the Education Committee, and so the Education Committee going forward will own the implementation of the survey and design, perform, and roll out, report out on the student and staff surveys for the school year. And then we're still working with a goal-setting plan for other additional goals. We're working with Lisa and administration in the November and December meetings to define and discuss additional goals, and we'll report out on those goals in the January meeting. I'd like to thank Evan and Greg for joining us on the Education Committee, and look forward to productive conversations.
So just maybe a technical question. So I agree with the idea of, and I think it's a good idea to have education on the surveys. I mean, the survey is not just about education, but I think it fits in that committee. It saves us from having to create a task force and having to coordinate separately and all that, so I think it's a good thing. Now, technically speaking, if you guys decide, you know, there's a lot of discussion about when do we do the survey and how do we do the survey, do we use Panorama or not? So I'm assuming with that goal, you guys will start the discussion and include Lynn with those, because I know that, you know, I was part of the survey task force for all these years that I've been on the board, and we always asked, like, should we we did make a lot of changes to the surveys, you know, there were 2, now there's 1, and when in the year we do it, so I'm sure you'll let us know, you know, in the next couple of months how those discussions go and if there's any changes or what the plan is. But
yes, we will.
Yeah. Happy to help if you're.
I appreciate it. We'll take you up on that offer.
All right. Great. Anything else for education? Somebody's ringing the doorbell. All right. Excellent. All right. And by the way, just general comment. I guess maybe I can say that when we talk about goals, but that's maybe, you know, the timing of that goal setting. We should talk about when we formalize and vote on it, because we kind of vote on our goals. We didn't have that on the agenda, but we can move that on to.
And you want everything on board on track?
Yeah, so and that's, well, I'll talk about it after the committee reports, because we did have an opportunity to have Board on Track actually talk to us about how to do that effectively, and maybe we'll do that in November, but we'll get there. Governance, or a new governance chair.
Well, I'll cover committee goals just a bit, but I know you're going to be doing one as part of the chair business stuff. So I have a couple of different things. We met on October 11th. One of the ones that came up was Sheila's public comment guidelines. I think mostly they were just a set of guidelines that we wanted to put forth for public comment at the board meeting. Is that something we're going to just share with the board?
Yes.
At some point, and then, you know, but the governance committee has approved the guidelines themselves, and it's just there for us to refer to, if you will, so that we have some framework to go forward on. We did talk extensively about the committee goals and who's on track and what we're doing and making sure we met Padmaja's requirements. I think everyone is essentially on track, and I also appreciate that. And what we did was we sat there and changed as we went, we updated the committee goals in Board on Track. So the committee just used it as a working time. I thought that was very effective because we were done when we were done. And it was a little bit of conversation that took us a while to agree and align, which I thought was also very effective, and it was very helpful to just update it right there. So we've added our goals to Board on Track. We also talked about the board topic calendar, just updated and tweaked a few things, and Lisa, just starting to get to know what the topic calendar overall looks like. There were a few questions, so we went through those. We always talk about board recruitment, so Raul, do you want to put a plug in for board recruitment here as well?
Yes, keep bringing people in.
Yes. And another one that we talked about, and I have not done very well at, is onboarding. I'm actually Evan's buddy, and I don't think we've had a chance to. It's been
tough scheduling.
It's been tough scheduling, but we do have a framework for onboarding. And we should all be doing our part. Evan, I'll schedule a meeting. Okay, and then the last one, Lisa, I'm not sure if you wanted to just say something really quick about the administration of prescription medications in public and private schools. Again, an informative sort of memo that we had to put out on the website. I'll let you.
So we realized at the start of this year when we had to have Raul signed something and I signed it, that the information on medication, while it was in the student handbook, and that's technically policy, we didn't have it on the website under the board's policies. So it is one place, so we were covered, but we just formalized it in governance, and we'll upload it to the website.
That was governance.
And we don't need to vote on that as a full board, right? It's just that. But just because,
Language.
yeah, we just took standard language that we need to have on our ability to dispense medication, the nurse's ability to dispense medication and how we qualify for the laws to do that. So just want to make sure we're compliant. Excellent. All right. Any other questions for somebody? Comments on governance? I'd like to say that we want to brag about putting our goals on Board on Track. I have the other committees thinking about how to catch up.
Well, I did want to just say, I think, again, your opening sessions, it's already difficult enough to get everybody once a month for it, so that does.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that, but maybe I'll live more. I don't know if you want to add anything to Marcy's report earlier from a development perspective.
Nope, just that we haven't, as you mentioned, and that we're really working that we have overlap in our various fundraising committees, and to sort of maximize our impact, we're trying to reorganize those and figure out the best way to do it. But regardless, I think it goes without saying, our goal is to raise money and to support Marcy in her work. So more to come on what ends up happening.
So maybe unless anybody has any questions for Maura, let's talk more about development. So let me talk about the goals, because what we had on the agenda was to vote on the actual goals. I think with the timeline what Roger sharing went on, and I think it's okay that we're not going to do it today. But I will say, speaking of Board on Track specifically, we had one of the things, I've said this in the past, but it's worth repeating. Board on Track is our tool that we use for building the agenda, for tracking all this, and helps keep us on track. But it's also a service. So we have free consulting basically from folks that have been, have sat in the executive director role, that have sat in the governance role with the state, that have a lot of experience with charter schools. And I think it's a resource that we should leverage as much as we can. There's a lot of resources, meaning documents. If we're writing a policy, chances are that somebody else already thought about a similar policy, so we can refer to that. So I, for one, have learned a lot from Board on Track, and I think we should leverage it. So in order to do that, as part of onboarding, there's a lot of new people on the board. We said, hey, why don't you guys come and talk to us about all the things we can do? So we were trying to do that for this meeting as a board education session at the beginning of the meeting. But then we realized again there was a scheduling conflict for our consultant. She offered to give us a recording, but we said, no, it's better to have you live and asking questions and whatnot. So we're going to do that in November, and that's the plan. Which actually, it's good timing for, if we see that in November, maybe we can take the month of December to clean up our goals and discuss them with the committee, and then actually put them in the system. Which also brings up the other question I have, and we don't really need to answer it right now, But we've also talked a lot about the timing of strategic planning. We typically do it in January, which is good because January is a good time. Everybody's thinking about, goals for the year and whatnot. But from the school year perspective, it's kind of messed up because we're halfway through the school year, and we're always like, okay, which goals are we talking about? From now till June or from July, from next school year? So we don't need to answer it now, but I think with Lisa being here now for some time, by the time we get to January, we can talk about, do we want to do strategic planning in January, or do we want to move it either to the end of the year or the beginning of the year, which is the summer. So again, there's factors, pros and cons for when we do it, but that's all tied to goal setting, thinking, how do we revise the strategic plan to make sure that we're keeping the eye on the long term. So I don't know if there's any reactions to what I just said.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to share, I met with Gina twice, I've spoken with her twice, she's fantastic. If you have any questions about any roles, responsibilities, or anything like that, she's amazing.
I was just going to comment on the timing and doing the strategic plan in January. If we do a strategic plan in January, why couldn't we plan for that half of the year and and then September through, we don't have to plan. We could plan in January. We could plan for the next 12 months or something like that. It won't align with our school year, but maybe it's okay.
Well, and maybe it's okay because strategic planning is supposed to be long-term planning.
Right,
So
right.
maybe it's too late to set goals for the fiscal '24, but it is long-term planning, so it's
Yeah.
3 or 5 years. So pros and cons.
My only thought on it is that I won't have completed the entry plan till the spring. And I think that can help drive that strategic plan. So just keep that in mind. I certainly can come with the information that I've gathered, but it like Roger said, it really has been incredibly busy. I've participated in all of the committees. I'm learning a lot, but I'll have more info come maybe April, May.
We've, in the past, we've done it a lot of times in January, sometimes it's been early, or sometimes way back it was in the summer, or toward the end of the school year, but I think in this case, we might want to wait for you to complete your plan, and maybe in the springtime that we then do a plan that covers the next school year. And the short-term goals would be school year ending in '25, and then the longer-term goals could be that, and then maybe in the following years we go back to January. But I think summer we found in the past was almost impossible to schedule. So I would advocate against summer because it's just not going to be a productive meeting.
Right.
But I think in this case,
Maybe
consulting with you, picking a time frame that works for this year would make the most sense rather than trying to rush it and do it too early.
And I think, at least from a teacher perspective, I don't know, maybe it's just that my life is sort of now permanently attuned to the rhythms of the school year.
Yeah.
But late spring, reflection time, like that checks out. That seems appropriate to me.
Yeah, and by the way, having participation, we usually have participation from some teachers in that, so having participation from those that are willing and want to be part of that, it's always a good thing. So if we do something that's convenient for teachers, then that's a plus.
Yeah, I think the ideal, at least from a teacher perspective, would be somewhere around late May. perhaps
After
early
AP.
June. Yeah, right, right after AP season where everyone is just kind of like,
Okay. Like I said, we don't have to decide now, but I did want to bring it up since we had goals on the agenda. We won't vote on them yet, but I think committees know what they're doing, and we're all moving along whether or not the goals are on paper, so that's okay. All right. Anything else? Any other business that's not on the agenda? So if that is the case, it is 7:40 something?
7:46.
7:46, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss negotiation strategies with represented personnel, because doing so in open meeting might affect our ability to negotiate. And would like to invite Dr. Lisa Mobley, Mike Baraki, yes, and is Leanna joining us, Leanna McLaren, to So we're going to motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Maura,
Second.
second by Samini.
Will we be returning into the session?
We will not be returning after executive session, thank you.
Okay, so that was Maura
Seconded by Samini.
and Sam.
Sarah will do us the honors.
Darren still with us?
Darren?
No, here, yes.
Vote yes.
Bella?
Yes.
Darren?
That was a yes.
Okay, Evan?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Maura?
Yes.
Raul?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Sheila?
Yes.
And Samini?
Yes.
Motion passes. We're going to executive session. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.